What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be talking about the most recent specialist that was added to Black Ops 4, and this is Outrider. We're going to have a look at her Hawk drone as well as the Sparrow. I'm going to break down exactly how they work, the timing on everything, and more importantly, I'm going to be talking about what exactly you can do to counter these items. I've already seen a few misconceptions out there in the community, so hopefully this will clear things up for you. So let's start it off with the Hawk drone. This is Outrider's special issue equipment, and with this, it's a drone that you deploy from where you're standing. You can fly it around anywhere on the map, and you can park it. Now, as you're actually flying the drone, there's really not a whole lot you can do. You can fly up and down, you can turn all around, you can just fly that drone, and you can see enemies with it. But you can't like mark enemies for your teammates or anything like that. You just sort of see them, which is kind of useless to you if you're standing still while controlling this drone. Because keep in mind, while you are controlling the drone, you are standing there completely defenseless. Now the way this is meant to be used is you fly it to a certain location, you hit square on PS4 at least to park the drone, and then any enemies that come within the line of sight of that drone while it's parked will have a red square appear on them, and therefore you can essentially see them through walls. Now keep in mind, you are the only player on the team that's able to see these red squares. This isn't a support type of thing that helps all of your teammates, it only helps you. The charge time on the Hawk is 110 seconds, which is pretty much right in line with all of the other special issue equipment. Nothing too special here, although one thing I will point out, when you deploy a Hawk drone, your next Hawk drone starts charging up immediately. And this is really cool because the Hawk drone has a duration of 50 seconds. So for that whole 50 seconds that you're already using a Hawk drone, your next one is charging up, getting ready to go. I should also point out that the duration of the Hawk drone is fixed, assuming an enemy doesn't destroy it. It's 50 seconds no matter if you park it immediately or if you're flying it all over the place. You can fly it for the full 50 seconds if you want, or you could park it immediately. It will self-destruct after 50 seconds. As for a couple other important things to note, it takes roughly half a second to be marked once you enter the line of sight of that drone. This is nearly instant, so if an enemy player enters the line of sight of that drone, they will almost always be marked nearly immediately. And once that player is marked, once they get to cover and they're out of the line of sight of the drone, that red square will stick with them for about 4 seconds. After 4 seconds is up, then that red square will disappear unless they come back into the line of sight of that drone. Now, if you're the one using the Hawk, every time it marks an enemy, you will get this indication sound right here. And on the other end of that, if you get marked by a Hawk drone, you get the very annoying noise that sounds like this. So that pretty much covers it for the characteristics of the Hawk drone, but now, how do you counter it? Well, the obvious choice to test here is Coldblooded, so I put that to the test, and it turns out Coldblooded isn't a full-on hard counter to the Hawk, but it does counter it to an extent. If you remember, I said as somebody comes around the corner, the Hawk drone will pick up on them and mark them within about half a second. If they're using Coldblooded, it will delay that slightly, so it takes roughly 2 seconds before you're marked. This is often all the time you need. If you're just zipping across an area really quickly, the Coldblooded perk will often prevent that Hawk drone from picking up on you at all. So Coldblooded is a pretty good counter to the Hawk, but if you're lingering out in the open, it will still pick you up. Now after that, I thought, let's try the Ghost perk. Let's just see if that happens to work. If you're at a full sprint and your Ghost perk is activated, will the Hawk drone pick you up? And the answer to that is yes, it'll pick you up just as if you didn't have the Ghost perk on at all. So based on my tests, there's nothing that will actually keep that drone from detecting you in the first place. If you come within the line of sight of that drone, you will be detected, but Coldblooded will delay that slightly. I will say, however, there is one perk that is a great counter to the Hawk drone that will at least help you out a lot against the Hawk drone, and this is the Engineer perk. If you're using Engineer, this allows you to spot that Hawk drone in the air a lot easier because sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to see because it's such a small drone. But with Engineer, it makes it much easier. Then you can just pop a bullet into it and that'll destroy it, and there you go. You've successfully countered the Hawk drone. Now personally, I was a little bit disappointed in this. I was kind of hoping Coldblooded would be a full-on hard counter so the drone would never pick you up, but it turns out the only real way to counter it is either to stay out of its line of sight or to destroy it. Now while we're still on the topic of the Hawk, I did want to mention the optimal placement for this. I've seen a lot of people flying this at like eye level and they park it somewhere at eye level, and this is just way too easy for an enemy to randomly stumble across it and shoot it. The best strategy for Hawk drones, in my opinion, is to fly it as high as possible. Keep in mind there is an altitude limit on this, but fly it as high as you possibly can, and then park it overlooking a big area of the map, or at least a key choke point, wherever you'd like to place that. Now another little tip that I have for you, just to maximize the effectiveness of this, if the situation allows for it, try to get it on the other side of the enemy so it will be looking at the enemy's backs. Now this is best for a couple reasons. First off, when you're looking at their backs, it will mark them long before they ever peek out of any piece of cover looking towards your direction, which isn't always the case if you just fly that hawk straight up above you. And second, if they are going to try to find it and destroy it, even with Engineer, it forces them to turn their back to you in order to find it, to destroy it, and that will definitely give you an edge if you're pushing in towards them. And that pretty much covers everything I wanted to mention with the Hawk Drone. Now let's get into the Sparrow, and this is a lot more on the simple side. The standard charge time in Team Deathmatch for the Sparrow is 8 minutes and 45 seconds, assuming you're not getting any score. And this is actually pretty fast for a lethal specialist. It is noticeably faster than things like the Annihilator, for instance, or the War Machine. And this means you will often be able to use the Sparrow at least 2 to 3 times per match, of course depending on the game mode, which is really nice. Also with the Sparrow, you get 10 shots, which is great when you compare it to something like the Annihilator, which only gets 6 shots. And the way it works is when you shoot an arrow, it will explode shortly after impact. Now this explosion is quite deadly to enemies that aren't using Flak Jacket, but I will say if an enemy is using Flak Jacket, it's actually a really good counter to one of these arrows, and it will actually take 4 arrows shot right next to your feet in order to get a kill on you if you're using Flak Jacket. However, a direct impact with one of these arrows is an insta-kill no matter what. There are no exceptions to that I was able to find. If that arrow hits you directly, you're dead. So the Sparrow is actually an incredibly powerful lethal piece of specialist equipment, and I like it quite a bit. I would say it is much, much better than Seraph's Annihilator. And with that, that's pretty much all there is to say about Outrider. Personally, my thoughts on the addition of Outrider, I think she was an excellent addition to the existing specialists in this game. I'm not the biggest fan of specialists out there, and I really dislike the implementation of Zero, but with Outrider, I feel like she just kind of fits into the roster quite well. Her specialist equipment is fun to use, it's great for your personal performance, but still requires you to use your gun skill in order to get kills. It just gives you that little bit of extra awareness. It's not overpowered in the sense that it helps your entire team out with just completely slaying out the enemies. And also the Sparrow, I feel, fits fairly nicely within the lineup of specialist weapons. If I had to make any changes to Outrider, I would say I would love to see Coldblooded properly counter the Hawk, so it just simply never picked up a Coldblooded user. And also, perhaps the Sparrow could use a slightly slower charge time, because when you compare it to something like the Annihilator, which has a slower charge time, I would say the Sparrow is far superior. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about the addition of Outrider? Do you think she was a good addition to the game, or do you think it made the game overall worse? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.